That's an LA woke problem.
Do you have any evidence of that?
Yeah. Look how incompetent she is.
Karen Bass is doing a bad job, you say. Then criticize her for that. But every time a black person does a bad job, if you call them a DEI hire, that becomes nothing more than a dog whistle and a racist slur.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about everybody.
She was hired. She was elected because she was qualified and because the voters wanted her.
But it's entirely down to her incompetence. And I'm telling you, there are lots of people in LA we're going to vote for her because of the color of her skin or her gender. I'm telling you. That's
what's going on, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Hope all's good wherever you are. In this video, we have Mark Lamont Hill, who actually makes a complete arse of himself and gets buried here by Piers Morgan and the entire panel. I'm just going to play a small clip of it when they talk about DEI, Gavin Newsom, the mayor of LA. Let's get into it.
LA has become a woke.
What makes a DEI?
No, I'm telling you.
I'm going to be very clear. That
you're
is
not understanding
racist.
Let me be very clear to you first. What I'm saying is there are large numbers.
You're calling someone who is democratically elected a DEI hire.
Let me finish. I'm telling you what I mean by that. She won as a democratically elected person. That is true. She's the mayor. However, I think a lot of people voted for her because she was a black woman, not because she's any good at her job. That's an LA woke problem.
Do you have any evidence of that?
Yeah. Look how incompetent she is.
How many black people have been mayor of LA? You say it's been decades of wokeness and skin color voting. How many black mayors have there been in the history of LA?
I think it's been getting worse and worse and worse.
How many black mayors have there been in the history of LA, Piers?
I'm telling you, in her case, I believe she is woefully incompetent, should never have got the job, and people voted for her because in their head, all they're getting told all day long in places like Los Angeles is DEI, DEI, DEI. That's all they hear about.
What qualification was she lacking to be mayor?
Have you watched her pronouncements? Have you watched her pronouncements?
I've watched her for 12 years in Congress. I've watched her advance legislation. I've watched her have political experience prior to joining the U.S. Congress and being a standing member of Congress. She's qualified. You may not like.
No, I think she's incompetent. It's worse than that. I don't care if I like her or not.
Her political credentials, but that doesn't mean
nothing wrong with being proud of diversity.
Because of the color of their
Listen,
skin.
I'm as proud of diversity as you are, and Mark is, everybody else is. Nothing wrong with being proud of diversity.
I don't think you are.
No, well, actually, I am. But what I believe in,
I disagree.
What I believe in everything is that meritocracy should trump mediocrity and should trump woke box ticking. That's what I believe. I believe that.
But you're arguing that somehow she didn't have merit.
I'm arguing that
she was more qualified than her opponent.
I'm arguing
a black person can do a bad job, and that's fine. Criticize them for doing a bad. Gavin Newsom's doing a bad job, but no one is addressing his race. He just did a bad job. Karen Bass is doing a bad job, you say. Then criticize her for that. But every time a black person does a bad job, if you call them a DEI hire, that becomes nothing more than a dog whistle and a racist slur.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about everybody.
She was hired. She was elected because she was qualified and because the voters wanted her.
But she was elected. But Mark, you're missing my point. You're missing my point. It's not because
I'm not missing your point. I'm disagreeing with your point.
That's fine. And you're perfectly entitled to disagree with it. But don't start talking about dog whistles because it's entirely down to her.
It's a dog whistle.
No, it's entirely down to her incompetence. And I'm telling you, there are lots of people in LA, when confronted with a billionaire candidate or her, we're going to vote for her because of the color of her skin or her gender. I'm telling you, that's what LA's like.
Or because he's a billionaire and we don't.
And I'm going to tell you that all around the country, people vote for Donald Trump and other people because they're white men. Identity politics plays across the board.
And you would be the first to say that's wrong.
The point here is not that.
You would be the first.
Is that whenever a black person gets criticized, calling them a DEI hire is questioning their competence, not their performance, but their fundamental qualification for the job. She was qualified for the job. She just hasn't done a good job. That's fine, but that doesn't make her a DEI hire. Ben Carson was wholly unqualified to be the head of HUD, right? But no one called him a DEI hire. Why? Because he was on the right. Whether you think he did a good job or bad job, he wasn't qualified. But every time he makes a mistake, I wouldn't call him a DEI hire, even though he had no qualification. He's far less qualified for that job than Karen Bass was to be mayor of LA. You have to understand here that DEI hire is itself a dog whistle when it's weaponized against black and brown people and women and trans folk and queer folk. Whenever you don't like the job they do, it says they're unqualified.
Okay. I hear what you're saying, but you also have to recognize that this relentless woke bullshit has actually turned large numbers of people into people I just don't even recognize as having a brain, where they literally buy into all this stuff. They walk around and their first thought is diversity, equity, inclusion should actually be a priority over any meritocracy. They genuinely believe that.
That's not what anyone has ever argued.
At that point, society starts to fragment.
Piers, that's not true. What I'm saying is,
it's true.
DEI initiatives begin from the premise that people who are qualified are being left and locked out of the room.
I know the premise.
When we advocate for people,
I know the premise, Mark.
No, but that's not.
Yeah, but hang on.
I understand
the
you.
Premise
You say you know the premise, but what you just did to the.
You're missing the point. The premise
what you just did to the audience was make it seem as if they weren't operating from that assumption.
The premise of being woke, right, was originally that you would raise awareness for social and racial injustice. I agree with that. By that criteria, I'm woke. That is not what woke became.
All agree that no matter what, people need to be fired. Doesn't matter what color of skin they have. Doesn't matter if they're DEI hires or not. The buck stops with you when you're in charge, and you should be fired. I'll give you my thoughts at the end, but I just want to say, if you don't mind, just smashing that thumbs up button for your boy. It really goes a long way to helping me out. And also, if this is not your first time here and you're not yet subscribed, hopefully this will be the video which I can earn your subscription. Let's get back to it.
And they start to think that DEI has to be the be-all and end-all of everything. And they start to vote accordingly.
Yeah. It just might be worth knowing that for the last 3 decades, there have literally been hundreds of scientific studies that have done the very thing you're talking about, usually through resumes. And what the evidence shows, what the scientific data from conservatives, Republicans, black, white, independent, political, apolitical, whatever, have all said the exact opposite of what you said. There has literally not been one empirical study in which the person has chosen a black person over a white person systematically. Also, when the names are blocked and
you don't think a single person, hang on, you don't think a single person in Los Angeles has ever voted for somebody based on skin color? Are you being funny?
That is a Beacom yoga stretch. There's nothing of what I just said is what you just said.
Yeah, you did.
I was talking about employer hiring, and you just flipped it and made it seem as if I said no one in LA has ever voted on the basis of race. Everybody votes on the basis of race, or not literally everybody. Every country, every state,
so you
every
agree
city
with
has
me, then?
People who vote on the basis of race. I guarantee you, old white men in Mississippi voted on the basis of race, and I don't think they voted for Kamala. Black men in New York or black women in New York voted for president on the basis of race, and they didn't vote for Trump. People vote on the basis of race all the time.
So
I am not disputing it. That is not my point.
Okay.
The point is that
So you accept that Karen Bass could have got a lot of votes based on her skin color? So you accept my premise that Karen Bass in Los Angeles could have got a lot of votes from people based on her skin color because they bought into the whole DEI argument?
No, that's not what I just said.
It is.
I said that everybody does it. The difference is
so you
only seem to think that black people... No, let me finish the sentence. Let me finish the sentence so we're clear. You seem to only think that black people voting on the basis of race or brown people voting on the basis of race counts. I'm saying
I
black,
said she
white,
got
red,
her
yellow,
job,
Democrat,
in my
Republican,
opinion.
They all...
No. I'm saying
you have no evidence for your opinion.
You just said everybody votes according to race, which is also bullshit, by the way. They don't all vote according to race. But the point... But you've actually, without realising it...
literally everybody,
but Mark, without realising it, you've confirmed my thesis, right? Because you've basically agreed that there are large numbers of people in Los Angeles who probably voted for Karen Bass because of her skin colour. And now she's turned out to be useless.
I want you to hear. I want you to try to attempt to hear what I'm saying. First, I want you to allow for the possibility that I could completely comprehend what you're saying and just disagree. And second, I want you to allow for the possibility that
I'll allow for that possibility.
That you may see this differently. Thank you. This is what I'm saying. Your premise is Karen Bass was elected partially, at least, because the people who voted for her on the basis of race. And you're saying that I have affirmed that thesis through my statement. What I'm saying as my rejoinder is, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is both candidates and all candidates get votes on the basis of race. A billionaire white man also gets votes on the basis of race. And I am not suggesting, and contrary to what you just suggested, that her that the number of votes for her by virtue of race are any more than the votes for him by virtue of race. I never said that, and I don't believe that. So at least, even if you disagree with me, you can at least acknowledge on national television that I did not affirm your thesis. If you comprehend, you understand I didn't affirm your thesis.
I think we're edging towards a greater comprehension of each other's positions, because the point I'm making is that I
always comprehend it.
Okay, but the point I'm making is that DEI has become such a massive thing in somewhere like LA that inevitably it's spilled over to the electorate when they vote for elected officials. And I think that's what happened with Karen Bass, who has now exposed herself to the world as being utterly useless. That's my point.
One thing I talked about in yesterday's video is that when it comes to Gavin Newsom, this guy's going to deflect. He wants to run for president in 2028. That's all he's thinking about. So he's trying to navigate the waters so that he doesn't destroy any of the presidential ambition that might be left for him. Okay, this is his only concern. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about the people of Los Angeles. He cares about himself. This is a sociopath. Now, he did that interview yesterday where he was trying to deflect if the buck stopped with him. And yeah, it does. That's how shit works. Shit flows downhill. Him and the mayor. Those two and dozens of government officials should lose their job. But even if the other government officials don't, those two should at least lose their job. People should actually probably go to prison for this. But I think we can all agree that whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't matter. When it comes to these massive disasters that happen, if you're a high-ranking political official in that state and you let that happen, you should be gone. Even if we didn't know what we know about California, that it cut massive amounts of money from the fire program. $100 million in cuts. Even if we didn't know that. Even if we didn't know that the water reservoir was not filled and it was mismanaged and it shouldn't have been filled and it was empty for a year. Even if we didn't know that. Even if we didn't know all about their DEI programs and how they hired the fire chief. And even if we didn't know that Mayor Bass was in Africa when this all happened and spent more time in Africa than she does in LA. Even if we didn't know all that, we would still know at a minimum that Newsom and Bass need to take the fall for this, because this is how leadership works. Leadership means that the buck stops with you. It means that if shit hits the fan, you take the blame, because ultimately you are the one in charge. You are responsible. You're the captain of the ship. You get paid the most, you have the most responsibility. It's like the Spider-Man thing, right? Where great power comes with great responsibility. The same goes for this. A whole city doesn't exist anymore because of you. You failed, sir. You failed, madam. No one forced you to be governor. No one forced you to be mayor. If you weren't qualified to do the job, if you didn't want to do the job, if you weren't responsible enough to do the job, don't apply for the job. But this is the stuff that happens when you have Newsom and when you have a mayor. Why do you even need them at all? If the whole place is going to burn to the ground anyway, and you're going to have crime and looting and a bunch of migrants and homeless and now fires that are destroying everything, why do we need these people? Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that thumbs up button for your boy. Consider subscribing to the channel. Help it grow. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out, everybody.